Okay, so we often think about harm, big societal harm, as something done by villains, right? Clear bad guys with evil plans.
Mm-hmm. The masterminds.
Exactly. But what if the really big damage, the systemic stuff, isn't actually done by them? What if it's done by, well, people like us, professionals just doing their jobs really well?
That's the unsettling idea we're digging into today. We're looking at this collection called the Tinker's Hammer Bundle.
Right.
And it really forces you to confront that possibility. It's kind of a shortcut, you could say, to understanding that whole banality of evil thing, but in a way that's surprisingly engaging.
Yeah, the sources are fascinating. It's like part role-playing game, part design philosophy.
And part just patterns from the real world. Yeah.
So our mission today, for you listening, is basically to pull out the key insights, the really important stuff from this unique set of materials.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so at its heart, what is the Tinker's Hammer Bundle? What's the core concept?
Well, it explores exactly that paradox you just mentioned. How ordinary, competent people, professionals, end up being complicit in systems that cause real harm.
Not because they're malicious, but just...
Exactly. Not through evil intent, but because they're applying their skills, their competence under institutional pressure. There's this quote in sources that just nails it. When you have a hammer this precise, every institutional betrayal looks like exactly the right nail.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds less like, a story about heroes fighting villains.
Oh, definitely not a power fantasy.
And more about digging into how people get trapped, that moral archaeology idea you mentioned.
Precisely. The sources call it moral archaeology. It's about digging into how good people, or at least normal people, get caught in these bad systems and the personal cost of that. It's not about finding heroes.
Right.
It's about looking at the banality of evil, how bureaucrats, consultants, skilled professionals, how they enable systemic harm just by being really, really good at their jobs, often without any act of malice at all.
So to really get this, the bundle doesn't just explain it, right? It kind of pulls you in. It uses different parts to make you, feel it, understand it, and then see it everywhere.
That's a great way to put it. There are sort of three pillars. First, there's the experience.
Okay.
That's power, corruption, and lies. It's designed as like a 2-hour espionage scenario. The twist is the players slowly realize they're not the good guys.
Yeah.
They're the antagonists in somebody else's story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the mission seems to be about, terrorist financing. But it turns out it's really corporate espionage to destroy an innocent family business, so you feel the themes directly.
Okay, so that's the experience pillar. Then you mentioned an engine, the Tinker's Hammer itself.
That's right. That's the engine. It's a full RPG system, and its core is this really unique mechanic called the will-death spiral.
Will-death spiral.
Yeah. So as your character makes morally compromising choices, their professional competence actually starts to degrade. They get worse at their job. They look more suspicious. It's a clever way to model how systems can just overwhelm individual choice. Your conscience basically becomes a liability in the job. That's where you understand the mechanics behind it all.
Okay, experience, understand. And the third one, recognizing the patterns.
Exactly. That's a box of nails. This part is all about application. It gives you, I think it's 25 different scenario frameworks.
25. Wow.
Yeah, and they go way beyond just spy thrillers. You've got historical stuff like the Potsdam Conference negotiations. You've got contemporary things like shady pharmaceutical research, even sci-fi, like First Contact gone wrong.
So each nail is a different kind of institutional betrayal.
Where professional skill enables some kind of moral compromise.
Yeah.
This is where you start to recognize these patterns everywhere.
It makes you wonder how something like this even starts. What was the origin, the design journey?
Well, it's pretty fascinating. It apparently started from a question about adapting a kind of doom spiral mechanic, like in some indie games where characters just inevitably decline.
Like Mork Borg, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. But instead of physical decay, they translated brilliantly to moral corruption. And as they developed the first scenario, the focus shifted away from, gunfights.
Right.
And towards information, infiltration, influence, how systems put pressure on individuals. And that naturally, almost inevitably, led them to Hanarant.
The banality of evil.
Exactly. How ordinary people can enable terrible things just through sort of thoughtless compliance. And then key ideas came in, like a leverage system, inspired by The Usual Suspects, apparently, and this replacement protocol with a character called Johnson. That's where the system really showed its teeth.
Okay, that sets the stage really well. Let's dive into that experience part more. Power, corruption, and lies, the Mombasa Files scenario. You said the players are the antagonists.
That's the core twist, yeah. You're playing operatives for this private intelligence firm, the consultancy.
Mhm.
Your job is to investigate a Kenyan shipping company run by the Kinyanjui family for alleged terrorist financing.
But it's not true.
Not even close. As you dig deeper, you find out this is a totally legitimate family business. Employs over 2,000 people, funds local schools, clinics. They're pillars of the community.
So who's behind it?
Your client,
Right.
a European shipping conglomerate called Logisticorp. They basically fabricated all the intelligence just to eliminate a competitor. And you, the players, are the tools they're using to do it.
That's chilling. And these sources talk about how the system itself reacts if you start to resist this Johnson protocol.
Yeah, this is really insidious. So after the first part of the scenario, if one of the player characters, has a moral breakdown or starts pushing back too hard,
Get pulled out.
instantly replaced by someone the sources call Johnson. He's described as this super competent veteran operative, but he's completely morally captured,
Meaning?
meaning he's accepted the compromises. He's actually likable, tells these, war stories about making hard choices in the past. He basically models for the remaining team how to rationalize, how to adapt, how to find that comfortable complicity.
Wow. And it makes you ask yourself, right, does getting good at your job, succeeding professionally, sometimes push you towards becoming like Johnson?
That's the uncomfortable question it raises, yeah.
And what if the whole team resists? Or someone breaks completely? The operation just stops.
That's the other kicker. No, it doesn't stop. If operatives refuse or break, the consultancy just brings in replacements, usually less experienced, maybe cruder operatives.
So the mission gets sloppier.
Exactly. It becomes maybe more dangerous for the operatives, definitely more visible, probably more brutal for the targets. But the harmful goal still gets achieved.
So your individual refusal doesn't actually stop the harm?
Often it just makes it messier. And this is the really deep horror the sources point to. Your own competence, your own moral restraint might actually be minimizing the collateral damage compared to what your replacements would do. Staying in, doing it cleanly, might feel like the less damaging option, even as you're doing something awful.
Oh, that's complex. Given how heavy this sounds, it's good the sources mention safety tools.
Oh, absolutely crucial. They emphasize content warnings, obviously, for things like economic violence, manipulation, complicity, and the bundle provides tools. Mandatory Session 0 discussions are a big one.
What happens there?
It's where everyone talks openly about real-world connections people might have, cultural representation issues, just general moral comfort levels. What are we okay exploring? What's off limits?
And during play.
There are in-play tools, too, like the X card, which lets anyone pause the game immediately if something feels wrong, no questions asked. And fade to black boundaries for scenes that might get too intense. It shows they really thought about the potential impact.
And finding out the truth about the mission, that it's all fake, that's not immediate.
Yeah.
Right? You mentioned a drip feed.
Yeah, it unfolds gradually, which makes it more insidious. Like, at first, you're just told Joseph Kinyanjui is a suspected terrorist financier. Plausible enough, maybe?
Okay.
But then, in Act 1, you start finding evidence of his actual charity work. Then, Act 2, you dig into the financials, and they just don't look like terrorist funding patterns. Something's off.
And then Act 3.
Boom. The full reveal. You find evidence that Logisticorp basically planted everything, fabricated the intelligence from the start. It hits harder because you've already been acting on the false premise. You're already complicit.
There's an example in the sources, right? Monica Wanjiku, the clerk.
Ah, yes. That's a great example of the pressure points. She's a records clerk in the Kinyanjui company. And in Act 3, she stumbles onto the evidence that proves the intel was faked.
So what do the players do?
They have choices, all bad. Bribe her. That costs you influence. You're standing within the system. Threaten her, maybe mention her kids. That costs trust with your teammates and your own will, your moral resolve. Or tell her the truth. Risk blowing the whole operation, your career. Maybe worse.
No easy answer.
None at all. It forces you to confront what you're willing to do, what lines you'll cross when the pressure is really on. It makes you ask, yeah, what would I actually do?
And assuming the players complete the mission, what does the aftermath look like?
The sources detail a pretty grim epilogue, set 6 months later. You see news reports. Economic chaos in East Africa because the Kinyanjui company collapsed, unemployment soaring, while Logisticorp announces a major expansion.
And personal consequences.
Oh, yeah. Each character gets something specific. Like, maybe River Chen gets a text from her sister who's now in a refugee camp because of sanctions linked to the company's collapse. Meanwhile, Marcus Dubois gets offered a big promotion, explicitly citing the Mombasa success and, hey, those private school fees, suddenly no longer a concern.
Rewarded for the harm.
And in the final scene, the real gut punch, you get called in for the next assignment. A very similar briefing, this time targeting a company in Lagos. And the question left hanging is just, do you accept?
Wow, okay. That really drives home the experience. Let's talk about the engine behind it, the actual mechanics of the Tinker's Hammer RPG. You mentioned the will death spiral.
Yeah, that's the absolute core of it mechanically. It's brilliant, really.
Right.
Every character has a will stat. Think of it as their moral resolve, their psychological integrity. And when they do things that are morally compromising, witnessing suffering they caused, betraying someone who trusted them, crossing a personal line, they lose points of will.
And what does losing will do in the game?
Here's the clever part. The amount of will you've lost applies as a penalty, a negative modifier, to all your skill rolls. Especially things like keeping your cool, lying convincingly, even just performing your professional tasks effectively.
So, the more guilty or compromised you feel.
The less effective you become. The more likely you are to slip up, look suspicious, fail at your job. Which of course can lead to more pressure, more bad choices, more will loss. It's a downward spiral.
Yeah.
Your own conscience literally makes you worse at your job.
That's fascinating. And you also said there's no real combat system. How does violence work then?
That's another key design choice. There are no attack rolls, no hit points, none of that. Violence isn't treated as a tactical option. It's framed entirely as a moral collapse.
So you can still choose to do it.
Oh yeah. If you decide to resort to violence, it effectively works. You achieve the immediate goal. But it always has a cost, a significant cost, usually in will or in trust with your team, or maybe influence if it's messy.
So it reinforces the idea that the real weapons aren't guns.
Exactly. The real weapons are betrayal, leverage, institutional pressure. Physical violence is just a sign that things have broken down morally and psychologically.
Yeah.
It always pushes you further down that spiral.
And the system tracks other things too, right? Trust and influence. How do they play into this?
Yeah, those are like currencies. Trust is about your personal relationships, loyalty between team members, maybe contacts. You can spend it to ask for favors, get someone to take a risk for you.
But betraying someone costs trust, presumably.
Big time. And influence is your standing within the organization, like the consultancy. It lets you access resources, pull strings, maybe cover something up. But you lose influence if you disobey orders, cause a scandal, fail spectacularly.
So your actions constantly affect your relationships and your institutional power.
Right. It ties everything together.
Yep.
Your choices aren't just abstract moral dilemmas. They have concrete mechanical consequences that affect your ability to operate, your relationships, and your own inner state through the will mechanic. It's all interconnected.
Okay, moving to that third pillar, a box of nails. You said this shows how widely these mechanics can apply, that the hammer is precise and the nails are everywhere.
That's the core message, yeah. It provides these 25 frameworks to show this isn't just a spy game thing. The underlying dynamics, professional competence being twisted by institutional pressure, leading to moral compromise that happens everywhere.
So what kinds of nails, what kinds of scenarios are we talking about? You mentioned Potsdam.
Yeah, imagine playing diplomats at the Potsdam Conference after World War II. You're negotiating borders, reparations, using all your diplomatic skill, knowing full well that the lines you draw on the map are going to cause immense suffering for millions through displacement and ethnic cleansing. Your professional success is measured by achieving national goals, regardless of the human cost.
That's heavy. What else? Pharma?
Yeah, there's one called the Pharma Papers. You play scientists or maybe marketing execs at a drug company. You discover the clinical trial data for a new blockbuster drug is being manipulated to hide dangerous side effects. Do you use your scientific expertise to fudge the numbers further? Your marketing skills to spin the narrative? All for profit and career advancement.
And management consulting seems less dramatic, but...
Oh, but the impact can be huge. The optimization engine. Your consultant's brought in to streamline a company or maybe a public service. Your job is to use your analytical skills, your MBA jargon, to find efficiencies. But efficiency often means mass layoffs, closing local branches, devastating a community. All while maximizing shareholder value or hitting some abstract metric. You're rewarded for the precision of your destructive analysis.
And even space exploration, the Sparrow Protocol.
Right. A first contact scenario. Maybe you're scientists, linguists, anthropologists on a mission to a newly discovered alien world. But due to cultural misunderstandings, bureaucratic imperatives from Earth, or maybe just applying Earth-based logic where it doesn't fit, your mission goes horribly wrong. Your scientific discoveries, your attempts at communication, end up enabling cultural destruction or even extinction. Your professional curiosity becomes a weapon.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What other situations, maybe closer to home in our own jobs or industries, might fit that pattern?
And that is precisely the question a box of mails is designed to provoke. The sources basically lay out this universal chilling equation. Professional competence plus institutional pressure often equals moral compromise.
Leading to that final dark thought you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Every professional victory is a personal defeat. Every institutional loyalty is a betrayal of humanity, and every competent action serves an incompetent system. It's a stark perspective.
So let's bring this home. Why does delving into this bundle of game ideas and scenarios matter to you listening right now? It's not just about fiction, is it?
Not at all. The sources are very clear that this is meant to shed light on real-world dynamics happening right now. They explicitly connect these themes to things like modern information warfare, economic intelligence, the way power operates through private corporations as much as governments.
So think about things like social media algorithms designed for engagement above all else, even if it spreads misinformation, or corporate espionage, or how private consulting firms get deeply embedded in government intelligence or policymaking.
Exactly. And the sources argue that many modern systems are almost designed to sideline individual conscience. They use leverage your need for the job, your family's vulnerability, even just your investment in your professional identity to make resistance incredibly costly.
It's not an accident, it's a feature.
It's a feature. It ensures compliance while letting the institution maintain plausible deniability. We just hire the experts to do their job.
It reminds me of what Hannah Arendt said about evil thriving on thoughtlessness, right? Just not stopping to think, not questioning the orders or the institutional goals.
Precisely. And this whole deep dive into the Tinker's Hammer bundle, it's really an invitation to think, to develop a kind of critical consciousness about how power really works and what your own skills, your own professional competence might be enabling, perhaps unintentionally, in the real world.
It's not about making you feel guilty, necessarily.
No, not about guilt. It's about awareness, about choosing to see the mechanisms at play, rather than just focusing on the task at hand.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you? This whole exploration seems to suggest that maybe the most radical thing we can do sometimes isn't just being good at our jobs,
But refusing to stop thinking about what our efficiency, our confidence actually achieves in the bigger picture. Who benefits? Who pays the price?
It goes back to that Arendt quote again, doesn't it? The sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be good or evil.
They just comply. They follow the path of least resistance, often paved by their own skills.
So the challenge this material leaves you with, is pretty stark. What are you building with your own professional hammer? And maybe more importantly, are you willing to really look closely at the nails all around you?